Welcome back to another episode, a Minisode with Crime Stories of Pakistan. I'm your host, Jehan. Today's story takes us to the very core of an issue that is often left in the shadows: abuse within religious institutes. This is a story of Mufti Azizur Rahman, a prominent cleric, and one of his students, Sabir Shah. Before we begin, I want to thank Mir Suleman for suggesting this case. So, thank you, Mir. And a quick note to our listeners: this minisode contains content that may be distressing, particularly related to sexual abuse. So, listener discretion is advised. If justice is not done, I will commit suicide. These are the desperate words of Sabir Shah, a young man whose life was torn apart by the very system meant to guide him spiritually. In 2013, Sabir left his home in Swat and came to Lahore to pursue a religious education at the prestigious Jamia Manzoorul Islamia Madrasa. What awaited him was far from the spiritual guidance he had hoped for. For many young boys like Sabir, madrasas, or religious schools, they represent an opportunity, a place where they are taught not only the tenets of Islam, but also given food and shelter. Madrasas are deeply embedded in the social fabric of Pakistan, especially in more rural or underdeveloped areas. With over 35,000 registered madrasas and nearly 2.5 million children, both girls and boys, enrolled, they serve as a critical educational hub for many. According to a report by the Express Tribune, quote, madrasas often serve as both homes and schools for students who may be entirely dependent on their teachers, not only for education, but for their basic needs. However, alongside their pivotal role in education, these institutions have also become spaces where power dynamics are dangerously unregulated. Unquote. So Mufti Azizur Rahman was an influential figure within Jamia Manzoorul Islamia, a respected madrasa in Lahore. He held a position of great authority, having been a teacher and administrator for decades. His reputation was that of a man of knowledge and religious authority. A quote from the well-known religious scholar Maulana Tariq Jamil captures the kind of reverence people like Azizul Rahman commanded. Quote, a mufti's duty is to guide the community towards the truth with both humility and wisdom, for it is their knowledge that people trust in the matters of faith and justice. Unquote. But for Sabir Shah, Aziz's guidance was nothing short of a nightmare. In 2013, Sabir, just 17 years old, and in his fourth year of Darse Neyazmi, it's an 8-year Islamic course, he found himself at the mercy of this man. Sabir shared how it all started. Quote, I was admitted into the madrasa in 2013 and had been attending it since. He, Azizul Rahman, blamed me for making another student take my exam, due to which I was banned from giving exams with the Wafakul Madrasa for 3 years. Unquote. So there's no real evidence of any wrongdoing, but Aziz sees this as an opportunity to control Sabir. So instead of imposing the usual punishment, like you can't sit for your exam or this exam is cancelled, Aziz made Sabir a horrifying proposition. Quote, Mufti Aziz promised passing me in my exams in exchange for keeping immoral relations with him. He said, "Make me happy, and I will think of something," unquote. And thus began 3 years of systematic abuse. Every Friday night at around 10, 11 p.m., Sabir was summoned to Aziz's room. And just so you know, Friday is like one of the holiest days in the Muslim week. But for Sabir, it became a day of dread. In Sabir's FIR, he stated that despite him being essayed every Friday for 3 years, Aziz did not let him sit for his exams in the center that was required to take his studies a step further. Sabir came from a poor family, and just like so many other students in Pakistan's madrasas, he had no power, he had no influence. Azizul Rehman, on the other hand, had connections to powerful religious political parties, particularly the JUI. So Sabir's options were limited. I mean, who would believe him over a man like Aziz, someone so deeply admired in religious circles? But Sabir bravely tried to seek help. First, he went to the school's Nazim, the administrator, but that Nazim just said, "You're lying, you're misinterpreting Aziz. This is such an elderly man. He's been in this institute for so long, and you're basically lying." Then Sabir went again to a different Nazim, to a different administrator, and this time he even had proof, but we're going to talk about the proof in a bit. And even after he showed footage to this particular administrator, who is Maulana Muhammad Hanif Jalandhari, just by the way, when you say Maulana, it is like a respectable title you give to religious scholars. Maulana basically means protector, but let me tell you that he did nothing to protect Sabir, so I'm not going to call him Maulana, I'm just going to call him Muhammad Hanif. Hanif. So instead of actually giving him protection and support and comfort, Hanif replied with disbelief, and he insisted that Aziz was too pious to be guilty of such terrible acts. This is a really heartbreaking reality for many victims of abuse. They muster the courage to speak out only to be silenced by those who are meant to protect them. So Sabir knew that in order to be believed, he needed evidence, and not just one video, two videos. So then, for 3 years, throughout his abuse, I cannot even imagine this, but for 3 years, he secretly recorded every horrific encounter he had with Aziz. Week after week, every Friday, he collected video footage as evidence. That's potentially 144 Fridays in 3 years. So that's potentially 144 pieces of evidence, all documenting the nightmare he was living. And these videos do come up later, but in some of the videos, it was seen that Aziz was holding Bukhari Sharif in his hands while essaying Sabir. Bukhari Sharif basically refers to one of the most authentic collection of hadiths. And hadiths are basically the recordings of what the Prophet said, what our Prophet did, everything that is approved by the Prophet, it is in that book. So just to illustrate the gravity of this, like imagine someone is holding the Holy Bible or is holding on to some religious symbol or statue in one's hand while they are committing this immoral act. But let me just remind you, potentially, he has 144 videos to prove that you're a victim of sexual assault. It really triggers me that victims have to even go through that to be believed. It's horrible. So just remember, all of this happened in 2013. Sabir is enrolled in an 8-year program in this madrasa. 3 years he's being abused. He says 2013 it started. He registered an FIR in 2021. So that was 9 years after. So I don't know, maybe he managed to complete his education at the madrasa and then decided to file an FIR. I'm not really sure. But in June 2021, Sabir's family, all obviously they were involved. The videos were out there. Sabir's face was very clearly visible. They filed an FIR against Aziz and his sons. Sabir himself told the police, quote, "He abused me for years, threatening to expel me if I ever spoke up," unquote. Meanwhile, the madrasa administration, they immediately fired Aziz from his position. Like, this is enough? Is that justice? hmm This was just damage control. And I still have a question. This is one child who has spoken up. Despite being in that situation, he knew he needed evidence and he kept it. But how many more Sabirs had suffered at the hands of Aziz? And did the madrasa know? I don't think there was just one video. I think there were a couple of videos that then went viral. And while the video is kind of, spread, Aziz himself uploaded a video and he's swearing on the Quran that he did not abuse Sabir. He claimed that this video was old. So if you do not abuse Sabir, then how is this video old? And he said that Sabir is using it for personal reasons. He also claimed that he's unconscious during the videos. He says, quote, "You can see my body was not moving. I was unconscious," unquote. It's a very contradictory statement, right? So at one point he's saying, I didn't abuse him, trying to instill this sense of me and Sabir had something consensual. And this is a very, very old video. I don't know why he's bringing it up. Then in that same video saying, I'm not conscious. You can see I'm not moving, which is insane. He basically, in that video, on swearing on the Holy Quran, says that this whole thing is done to defame me. Sabir is defaming me. The madrasa is defaming me. But yeah, so he makes that video and then the FIR has been registered. The police end up at the madrasa to arrest Aziz, right? And he's nowhere to be found. Turns out he made that video, he ran away. So this is in Lahore. His village is 5 hours, 21 minutes bus ride in Mianwala. He dashed it. He ran. But thankfully, eventually, at some point, he was caught. The police brought him back to Lahore. And then there was a confessional statement by Aziz. And he says, quote, "The video of molestation is of me. I made a mistake and I'm embarrassed about it. The student videotaped the occurrence out of my knowledge. When I found out, I told him to not disseminate it. He made the video viral despite the fact that I had warned him about it. After it went viral, my sons called him out and threatened him." Unquote. So basically, my son's threatening him and wanting to kill him and beat him. He did it to himself. I told him, don't share the videos. So during his court proceedings, he turns around and he says that Sabir used to get him tea, and he's certain that Sabir had mixed something in the tea, and Sabir took advantage of him. And you're like, what? What are you saying? Like, by the way, I haven't mentioned how old this man is. He's 70. He's a 70-year-old old man who's made conflicting statements, but actually is saying, this is Sabir. He makes something in my tea. He took advantage of me. I'm not moving. I'm unconscious. Can't you see that? So during the court proceedings itself, he completely went against his own statement. He said, I made that statement because the police put pressure on me. They made me confess. And the police rebuttal to that was, no, he spilled the truth out himself. And it matches exactly what Sabir said, his statement. Then he said that he's a 70-year-old man. And why would I do this? The madrasa, it's framing me. This boy, they're helping the madrasa to frame me. He says, quote, the move is politically motivated as few people wanted to expel me from the madrasa, unquote. During the court proceedings, 14 videos were shown as evidence. So then Aziz was like, no, 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 that's not me. He's edited me. That's not me, da da da. All that. I'm not even going to get into it. But Eventually, a forensic examination was done of the video and the audio that Sabir had, and it came to light that there was no editing done. It was not fabricated. It's not photoshopped. That man in the video who is abusing Sabir is indeed Aziz, and that boy is Sabir. Aziz said that I'm 70 years old and he played on that. And he's like, I'm an old man and I'm not like that. And I don't even think I'm physically fit to even perform such acts. This was before the forensic examination. So then the court demanded a forensic examination of the audio, the video, of a DNA test done, and they wanted to see if Aziz was medically fit. So it eventually turned out that he was medically fit because, yeah, that was him basically doing it. In fact, in one of the videos, Aziz is actually heard promising to help Sabir pass his exams in exchange for his compliance. Like he's saying, I'm so happy that you are making me happy, and don't worry, your work will be done, while he's abusing him and while holding the Bukhari book, the Hadith in his hand. Sick. It's so sick. I'm so triggered. But something else that really triggered me is, I mean, there's no doubt, right? Like now, even forensic testing has been done. It's been proved. It's not been edited. The videos have not been fabricated with. They've not been altered. They've not been photoshopped. But some people who supported Aziz, which I cannot even tell you how many people have justified Aziz's actions. It's disgusting. Disgusting. And yes, they're like muftis themselves or Molana. So it's really sick. It's just really disturbing. But his supporters, they stated that, oh, okay, so the DNA didn't match, right? So obviously, this means there's no case. It's like, excuse me, the DNA will not match because A, it did not take place at the time of this incident. So obviously, it will not match. And B, hello, you have video and audio showing, the video is showing Aziz's face. Clearly, it's been forensically examined and it's passed that that is Aziz. And you can hear him as well. So what the hell? Like, what, are you delusional? Like, you're sick. Like, the fact that you, it's just sick. It's so sick. It's so sick. And it just makes me wonder, those who support him, basically, it's so scary to think that they probably are in similar situations or have been through similar situations. It's just, but despite the fact that this case gained a lot of media coverage, many famous religious leaders and ulmas, religious scholars, they remained disturbingly chup, silent. And just so you know, in Pakistan, religious leaders, they're often the first to rally against perceived blasphemies or cultural offenses. So those people who make such small issues, such minute issues into issues, they, in this instance of child abuse, which is stemming from them, their own institute, they were quiet. And barrister Taimur Malik, he pointed this out in a tweet when he said, quote, how many religious scholars or religious parties have condemned Mufti Azizul Rahman so far? Has there been a pledge to investigate such incidents at madrasas in Pakistan? Sadly, the answer is mostly no. Unquote. Journalist Zarar Khoro also called out the hypocrisy, tweeting, quote, the ulma and religious parties that rally against minor offenses are not just silent, but colluding to protect those responsible for molesting children, unquote. And there were activists, there was even the prime minister who also made a comment. The media was buzzing with people tweeting and reposting and saying justice for Sabir and we need to investigate madrasas and what is happening and why is everyone silent now. But it's so shocking, you'll be so shocked. Not everyone was on his side. So there's this YouTuber called Marine Sipten. She has 337,000 subscribers. She comes on and talks about this case. She publicly blames Sabir for his abuse. In her videos, she argues that Sabir was responsible for the abuse. She says that, oh, Sabir could have left the madrasa, he could have refused to participate. She even went on to say that no degree is more important than one's respect. And Marine Siptan's argument that Sabir should have somehow removed himself from the situation, it just is so deeply ignorant. It just shows a complete lack of understanding of the psychological manipulation and power dynamics at play in abuse cases. And to suggest that a young boy, even 17, that's young. So, a young boy placed in an environment which is meant to be safe and sacred is equally responsible for his abuse because he didn't leave or resist, it's sickening. It reveals a dangerous mindset that not only minimizes the trauma victims endure, but also emboldens abusers. It also gives way for abusers to keep abusing. And Marine Siptan, you need a reality check. It's clear you have never experienced anything remotely traumatic yourself. I am actually very, very shukr, khuda ka, grateful that you've never experienced something like this because it shows in your ignorance in your comments. Your comments are not only insensitive, they perpetuate the same victim blaming culture that exists in Pakistan, where victims are blamed for everything, everything, even their own abuse. And the fact that you have 337,000 subscribers, it says a lot about how many people share your delusional thinking and your bizarre, and it's horrifying that you and people like you exist in today's world and have such a thinking. And I feel sorry for you. You have zero empathy. So shame on you, Marine Sipten. But this attitude is exactly why survivors of abuse, they hesitate to come forward. They fear being blamed, shamed, disbelieved. Even Sabir, who went up to the administrator, the Nazim, turned around and said, no, 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 you're lying. Even when he showed Muhammad Hanif, another very prominent figure, religious figure, a video with proof, he turned around and he said, dude, he's 70 years old. What are you talking about? Don't defame him. What's wrong with you? It's people like them, people like Marine Siptan, that allow abusers to do what they do and make a victim think 10 times before coming out and speaking out. Sabir's bravery in speaking out should be honored, it should not be criticized. I am so proud that he did. He spoke up, and I know how hard that must have been. But I hope when someone hears about Sabir's case, it gives them courage that, you know what, someone will hear me. There will be 50 people who will blame me, but there will be a group of people, there will be one person even who will support me, and that's all you need. That's all you need. DIG Sharik Jamal, he held a press conference adding charges to the FIR against Azizur Rahman. He highlighted how Aziz's actions not only violated the law, but also disrespected Islam, as the abuse video shows him holding Islamic books while assaulting Sabir Shah. Tariq Jamal emphasized that this case should be handled to warn and deter others from similar behavior. So suddenly, this case turned from a sexual assault case to a Tawheed-e Mazhab case. Tawheed means insulting, Mazhab means religion. So it became, you've insulted our religion. And the sexual abuse basically took a backseat, which it just infuriates me because, okay, I can understand. I can understand why you would make it Tawheed-e Mazhab, but SA is SA. Like, what is wrong with you? So Aziz attempted to blackmail the madrasa administration. He threatened to expose the hidden activities within the institute if they didn't support him. And apparently, it came out, this is now allegedly, I do not know, I cannot confirm, that this is not the first incident. A few years prior, the madrasa committee had covered up similar occurrences of misconduct by Aziz, but they allowed him to continue. They didn't do anything about it. But now that Aziz is blackmailing them, and because it reached the media and it went viral. Like, I cannot tell you how viral it went. That is when the madrasa then turned around and said, you know what, you want to threaten us? Go ahead. Then Aziz's sons, who were involved in threatening Sabir, who even were involved in beating him up, they were initially held in police custody, but they were eventually released on bail. And there's been silence ever since 2021, where in 2024, and I still don't know if Aziz actually is in jail, his lawyer started pursuing an out of court settlement through the local Jigra, the Panchayat, offering financial compensation to Sabir's family. So they're trying to do an out of court settlement. I believe Panchayat system needs to be completely eradicated. Madrasas need to be eradicated from Pakistan society. They just need to go. So apparently he has settled this financially with Sabir's family. And the last thing that was put up on the internet about Sabir was that his family was thinking about accepting that money and sending Sabir abroad because obviously he can't remain in Pakistan now. This case, it just highlights the dark underbelly of religious institutes in Pakistan, where unchecked power can lead to abuse. Sadly, cases like these are often swept under the rug, with victims left to bear the scars alone. Human rights groups like Sahil, they report thousands of child abuse cases annually, with a significant percentage occurring in madrasas. And yet, justice for these children remains elusive. And in the aftermath of this case, there has been increased scrutiny on madrasas, but real lasting reforms are still a long way off. The silence from many in positions of religious authority is concerning. As of today, madrasas continue to be a vital part of Pakistan's educational system. When institutions meant to teach spirituality and morality fail to protect their most vulnerable students, it raises uncomfortable questions about the role of religion in Pakistani society. What can be done to prevent this? Is there hope for change? Perhaps it begins with speaking out, just as Sabir did, and demanding accountability, not just from individuals like Aziz, but from the entire system that allows such abuse to occur in the first place. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with one thought. Stories like Sabir's are hard to hear, but they are even harder to live. It's crucial that we don't let these stories disappear into the void. The more we talk about them, the harder it becomes for those in power to hide from accountability. Thank you for listening to this episode of Crime Stories of Pakistan with Naz and Jihan. Again, thank you, Mir Suleman, for suggesting this case. This was very hard for me to research, but it had to be done. If this case resonated with you, or if you'd like to share your thoughts or comments, please reach out to us on social media. We need you guys to help us grow and reach a larger audience. We are trying to do our part. It's now on you all to do yours. And as always, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, speaking out against injustice is the first step towards change. This is Jihan signing off. Until next time. Bye.